Bismillah, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We are from group 2. We are going to explain about mathematical learning theory, especially humanism theory and constructivism theory. In this video, we are going to explain about humanism theory, constructivism theory, and advantages and disadvantages humanism and constructivism theory, principles of learning theory, and the last is application of the theory of humanism and theory of constructivism. I am Putri Sasmita. As the first speaker, I want to explain about humanism theory. Definition of humanism theory. Theory of humanism is a learning theory that prioritizes humanizing humans and is expected to be able to develop self-potential. Humanism learning theory is that the learning process must begin with the human's individuals or itself. The humanist approach is focus of effect outcome which further highlight the importance of the content of the learning process. The main goal of educator is to help students develop themselves, which which mean helping individual to know themselves in order to help discover talent and release the potential that exists with each individual. Characteristic humanism theory. 1. The importance of humans as individuals because according to the view of this theory of humanism, learning is student-oriented. 2. Emphasizes personal unanimity. This means that is concerned with the world, a complete argument in the student's personality, or in other words, concerned with the interests of student in terms of learning, paying attention to the potential possessed by students. 3. Emphasizes the ability of students to determine the form of their own positive behavior. 4. The subjective perception that each individual has. The point is to prioritize and understand the potential of each individual. 5. Emphasizes the role of cognitive or knowledge and affective. 6. Learning is considered successful if students understand the environment and themselves. And the last, understanding behavior from the point of view of the performer, not the observer. Figures of humanistic learning theory. Abraham Maslow. Abraham Maslow humanistic theory is one of the theories in physiology that view humans from all aspects. In this humanistic theory, Maslow stated that if humans can realize their potential to the fullest, then humanistic will reach the meta level, namely the level of self-actualization. Abraham Maslow in this humanistic theory gave birth to a theory, namely the theory of motivation called the hierarchy of needs. Abraham Maslow hierarchy of needs theory. The lowest level is physiological needs, namely the needs to mention live. These needs are like the needs to eat, drink, and so on. The desire to fulfill this physical need stimulate a person to behave and do a job actively. Next is safety. This level of need is a safety needs. Belonging needs. This need is needed because it is a tool for interacting with each other and being accepted in the group association and in the community environment. Normally, humans will not want to live alone in a secluded place, but they always need to live in group. Next is esteem need. This need is the need for appreciation for the community. And pada tingkatan tertinggi is self actualization. This need is the need for self actualization by using all abilities, skill, and optimal potential to achieve very satisfying achievement. Maslow states that there is the level of self actualization. Humans must meet every level of the most basic level of these needs. This means that the fulfillment of one level is a prerequisite for continuing to higher education next level. The next is Carl Ranson Rogers. Rogers' theories obtains clinically. He believed that humans has one basic motive, namely the tendency to self-actualize. This tendency is the desire to fulfill one's potential and reach the highest state of human's beginnings. The basic theory of humans, according to Rogers, is a doctrine, a way of life that places human value at the center and emphasizes honor, self-respect, and the capacity to release oneself for a particular purpose, which will later be connected with human learning or education. Arthur Combs is one of the humanistic figures who contribute his thought regarding the world of education. Arthur Combs, together with the Donalds, proposed the concept of meaning in the learning process. According to the concept of meaning, learning occurs when it has meaning for the individual. That is, the teacher cannot impose material that is not liked or relevant to the life of students. According to Combs, to understand the behavior of students, what needs to be understood is to understand what the world is seen from the student's point of view. This statement is one of the humanistic view about feeling, participation, perception, belief, and the purpose of inner behavior that make student different from other students.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Andi Muhammad Waisal Karni. I want to explain about Constructivism theory. Constructivism is a theory in education that recognizes, learn, construct new understanding and knowledge, integrating with what they already know. This includes knowledge gained prior to entering school. This theory, it is said that the learner who receives the information, you will always check the truth of the information and revise this principle when they are considered it can be used anymore. That has implication that students will be actively involved in activities learning. Characteristic of constructivism theory. First, develop alternative strategies for obtaining and analyzing information. Second, the possibility of a plural perspective, multiple perspective in the learning process. Third, the role of the main student in the learning process, both in regulating or controlling his own thought process and when interacting with his environment. Fourth, use of scaffolding in learning. 5. The role of educators or teacher more as tutor, facilitators, and mentors to support the smooth and successful learning process of student. 6. The importance of authentic learning activities and learning evaluation. Figures of constructivism theory. The first is Alexander Wendt. Alexander Wendt was a German politician. One of his opinion on constructivism is how identity formation become the most basic and primary thing in deciding his progressive policy, because he thinks a person cannot immediately give his verdict without recognizing who he is, the state and society. Therefore, the social approach of society becomes important without thinking about the power that is always echoed by the realist view. According to Alexander Wen, the two basic cores of constructivism are the structure of human relation is determined more by shared ideas than by material impulses, and the identities and interests of interested actors are constructed by shared ideas rather than derived naturally. Two is Emmanuel Adler. Emmanuel Adler divided constructivism into two approaches. The first approach sees reality, material, and idea as two different and separate things altogether. Reality is everything that can be reckoned into apparent from reality is like the mind from human subjective. The odd is in the human mind. On the contrary, the second perspective believes that really is nothing but an idea. What has been considered as something that can be reckoned, can be proven scientifically, is actually the result of fantasy or more perception. What has been called state, war, nuclear weapons, the international system that are visible or invisible are all the effect of the idea itself. 3 is Nicholas Onuf, a constructivist think named Nicholas Onuf was some who introduced the concept of the relationship of rules in society. In this concept, he stated that the structure created will again affect the rule maker when interacting. Why? Because the creator of the rule is part of the society in which the rules apply and govern their life. So in the end, the rule will turn around to affect the rule marker. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the chance. I'm Fatul Akbar as the last speaker, and I will explain about principle, advantages and disadvantages of humanism theory and constructivism theory. Okay, first I want to explain about principle of humanism theory. Okay, so there are 5 points that implement about principle of humanism theory. First is student choice. Choice is central to the humanism learning theory. Humanism learning is student-centered, so students are encouraged to take control over their education. They make choices that can range from daily activities to future goals. Students are encouraged to focus on a specific subject area of interest for a reasonable amount of time that they choose. Teachers who utilize humanism learning believe that it's crucial for students to find motivation and engagement in their learning, and that is more likely to happen when students are choosing to learn about something that they really want to know. Okay, second is fostering engagement to inspire students to become self-motivated to learn. Okay, the effectiveness of this psychology approach is based on learning feeling engaged and self-motivated, so they want to learn. So, humanism learning relies on educator working to engage students, encouraging them to find things they are passionate about, so they are excited about learning. Okay, third is the importance of self-evaluation. Uh, for most humanism teachers, grades don't really matter. Self-evaluation is the most meaningful way to evaluate how learning is going. Grading students encourages students to work for the grade instead of doing things based on their own satisfaction and excitement of learning. Routine testing and rote memorization don't lead to meaningful learning is this theory, and thus aren't encouraged by humanism teachers. Humanism educators help students perform self-evaluations so they can see how students feel about their progress. Okay, fourth is feelings and knowledge are both important to the learning process and should not be separate according to humanism psychology. Humanistic psychology. Okay, humanism teachers believe that knowledge and feelings go hand in hand in the learning process. Cognitive and affective learning are both important to humanism learning. Lessons and activities should focus on the whole students and their intellect and feelings, not one or the other. Okay, and the last principle is a safe learning environment. Because humanism learning focus on the entire student, humanism educators understand that they need to create a safe environment so students can have as many as their needs can have as many as their needs met as possible. They need to feel safe psychically, mentally, and emotionally in order to be able to focus on learning. So, humanism educators are passionate about the idea of helping students meet as many of their needs as possible. Okay, next is principle of constructivism theory. So there are 8 points that implement about principle of constructivism theory. First is knowledge is constructed. Okay, this is the basic principle, meaning that knowledge is built upon other knowledge. Students take pieces and put them together in their own unique way, building something different than that another students will build. The students' previous knowledge, experience, belief, and insight are all important foundation for their continued learning. Okay, next. People learn to learn as they learn. This meaning that learning involves constructing meaning and systems of meaning. For the example, if a student is learning the chronology of dates for a serial of historical events, at the same time, they are learning the meaning of chronology. If a student is writing a paper about history, they are also learning principle of grammar and writing as well. Each thing we learn gives us better understanding of other things in the future. Next, learning is an activity process. Learning involves sensory input to construct meaning. The learner needs to do something in order to learn. It's not a passive activity. Learners need to engage in the world, so they are actively involved in their own learning and development. You can't just sit and expect to be told things and learn. You need to engage in discussion, reading, activities, and next is learning is a social activity. Learning is directly associated to our connection with other people, our teachers, our family, our peers, and our acquaintance impact our learning. Educators Educators are more likely to be successful as they understand that involvement is key in learning. Isolating learnings isn't the best way to help students learn and grow together. Progressive education recognizes that social interaction is key to learn, and they use conversation, interaction, and group application to help students retain their knowledge. Okay, next is learning is contextual. Students don't learn isolated facts and theories separate from the rest of our lives. We learn in ways connected to things we already know, what we believe, and more. The things we learn and the points we tend to remember are connected to things going on around us. Next is knowledge is personal. Because constructivism is based on your own experience and belief, knowledge becomes a personal affair. Each person will have their own prior knowledge and experience to bring to the table, so the way and things people learn and gain from education will all be very different. Next, learning exercise in the mind. Hence, experience and physical action are necessary for learning, but those elements aren't enough. Engaging the mind is key to successful learning. Learning needs to involve activities for the mind, not just our hands. Mental experience are needed to retaining knowledge. Okay, and the last, motivation is key to learning. Uh, Students are unable to learn if they are unmotivated. Educators educators need to have ways to engage and motivate learners to active their minds and help them be excited about education. Without motivation, it's difficult for learners to reach into their past experience and make correction for new learning. Okay, next, advantages and disadvantages of humanism theory. For the advantages, there are 5 points. One is first is democratic nature dominates. With the application of this humanism learning theory, the learning environment will feel more democratic, but still respect the teacher as a facilitator to deliver students to achieve what they want and help develop student potential. Next advantages is students tend to be more active, so that the learning output is maximized. Uh, The second advantages of the humanism theory is that the active role of students is more dominant than the teacher. Unlike the previous theory, where the teacher is the center of learning and forcing students to achieve all the lesson they don't even like. Next is creating an atmosphere of mutual respect and respect. Another advantages of humanism theory is that apart from being democratic, it's also able to create a learning atmosphere that respect each other. Freedom to expression will also encourage students to think more creatively and openly. Next, its nature forms the personality of students according to their potential. Uh, by applying the humanism theory, which means that learning follows the way of thinking and interest of student, it will make it easier for students to maximize their potential and shape the students' original personality. That way, students will be able to find themselves more and be able to become human beings with extraordinary good personalities. Next, training teachers to accept students as they are. Furthermore, by applying humanism theory, teachers will be trying to accept students as they are, because in the learning process, leader is to develop the potential and talent of students. Okay. Beside advantages, we also have disadvantages of humanism theory. For first is cannot be tested easily. The humanism theory, which is the study of personality psychology, can't be tested easily because there is no definite measure of its nature, which lies in the human personal itself. Next is there is a bias in the goal. The shortcomings of this humanism theory are still related to the first, namely because of the nature of personality. To know the exact size of someone who has succeeded or not cannot be determined clearly, or we can say it is bias. This tends to be subjective, so the everyone assessment will vary depending on the knowledge and even the personal experience of the assessor. Next, difficulty distinguishing who is serious and who is not. Indeed, this learning theory makes students more active and creative to explore themselves. For students who are serious about learning, they will definitely take advantage of exciting opportunities and try new things that are still within their preferred scope. In contrast to students who are not serious, without the supervision of the teacher as a facilitator, it will make the students more and not get end result. And the last disadvantages, the freedom given is usually misused. Uh, in the humanism learning process, which tends to give more freedom to students, this usually tends to be misused. For example, in group work, there are some students who only leave their names without joining the work. Okay. Next is advantages and disadvantages of constructivism theory. Uh, for the advantages, there we divide into several parts. First is thinking. In the process of building new knowledge, students think to solve problems, find ideas, and make decisions. When children are directly involved in the problem solving process, children will think what the solution to a problem is. So, that they will improve and process their thinking. Next, advantages in understanding. Uh, this theory is the understanding gained by the students are getting stronger. Students are directly involved in seeking new knowledge. They will understand it better and can apply it in all situations. With the direct involvement and development of student thinking, their understanding will be deeper. Next, in remember. After the thinking process and increasing student understanding, student will automatic, automatically remember all the concepts they have learned from the problem solving process. Through this approach, students will build their own understanding. Instead, they are not Instead, they are more confident in facing and solving problems in new situations. Uh, Next, in social skills. Social skills are obtained by students when students discuss expressing opinions and questions to discuss friends. In addition, students can also ask their teacher about new things he got or anything he didn't understand. Thus, the social interaction of students will be awakened. And last is motivation. Students are directly involved, then understand, remember, believe, and interact with each other. They will feel motivated and will continue to learn to acquire new knowledge. Okay. Uh, for the disadvantages, uh, there are 3 points. One. First is students construct their own knowledge. It's mean that it's not uncommon that the result of student construction don't match the rules of science, causing misconceptions. Okay. Next is constructivism instills so that students build their own knowledge. Uh, this definitely take a long time, and each student requires different handling. And the last disadvantages is the situation and condition of each school is not the same. Because as we know, not all schools have infrastructure that can help students activity and creatively. This certainly affects the student learning process in the application of constructivism theory. If the facilities if the facilities and infrastructure are in, inadequate, it's difficult to support students' activity and creativity in learning. Okay, that's all about my topic, and thank you.